This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. Please take note that this show is not a substitute for actually creating a life worth living, because this show will stir your beliefs, make you question what it means to create a life worth living. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today to start turning your dreams into a reality. Hey friends, before I get into this episode with Amy and myself, I just want to read off this awesome review that I got from It's Just Me Ty. He says, amazing podcast. Out of all the podcasts I've listened to, let me re-say that again. Amazing podcast. Out of all the podcasts I've listened to, Logan's Scratch Your Own Itch is among the best. Whether he's just speaking on his own truth or with the aid of a great guest, Logan creates a great thought-provoking atmosphere that is perfect for any podcast listener. Great people make great podcasts, as witnessed here. Keep it up, Logan. Gosh, that fills me up so much. Thank you so much. I just want to remind you guys that I'm listening, and if you leave a review, I'd love to read it off. It just helps this podcast become a little bit more searchable. So the more you review, the better I can be found and the more stories I can share. The curiosity questions. And the curiosity question that I have for you today is, have you ever been afraid about being a has-been? That's really what Amy Oestreicher and I talk about today. That deep, scary thing of really having this huge idea inside your head and then not becoming that thing, whether it's a great writer or, an actress or actor or maybe a podcaster. It's scary to be a has-been. And so if you have this inkling of being scared of being a has-been, I want to invite you to email me, logan@logantylernelson.com, and I would love to send you a free PDF about 12 questions that you can ask yourself to really find your area of supremacy, which is your expertise, and to just ask these questions alone and to kind of reflect on them every single day helps so much. It's changed my life, absolutely. And I can honestly say that it's changed my life. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and enjoy this interview with Amy Oestreicher and I. Hey, you. So, my curiosity question is, have you ever been scared of just being a has-been? Someone who has the idea of being on Broadway or writing the next best-selling book, or maybe just creating that one thing that you care about and you put it out there into the world because you put so many hours into it. And you hope that this skill actually takes blossom, but it never does. Well, I want to let you know that you're not alone. The mission of this show is to make you feel less alone, but even more so, to ask that one question in order to continue to scratch your own itch and create a life worth living. My guest today has had these same thoughts of being a has-been, and she's had to go through a ton to actually start doing what she was meant to do on this planet. Her name is Amy Oestreicher, and Amy is a normal teenage theater nerd until the day her stomach exploded. Amy Oestreicher is a PTSD peer-to-peer specialist, artist, author, writer for the Huffington Post, speaker for TEDx. She's a health advocate, Survivor award-winning actress, and playwright, eagerly sharing the lessons learned from trauma and has brought out the stories that unite us all. She's toured theaters across the country, earning accolades since its Broadway World Award nominated NYC debut. As a visual artist, her works have been featured in esteemed solo exhibitions, and her mixed media workshops emphasize creativity as an essential mindset. Gosh, reading her bio just scratches the surface of who she really is. So I'd love for you to meet someone who has one of the most colorful stories I've ever heard, and seriously one of the best TEDx talks I've ever watched. Amy Oestreicher, thank you so much for coming on Scratch Your Own Itch.
Wow, thank you very much. That was a very nice intro. I'd like to think of my story as colorful, so thank you for that.
Oh, it is. Oh my God, are you joking? Yeah, from the isolation to I just want you to tell your story, because the mission of the show is to really make people feel less alone and give people the tools to, start to live a life where they start scratching their own itch by asking themselves those quality questions in order to live a quality life. That gives them
Right.
gives them like a little bit of freedom, and also, honestly, gives them insight to making some money in something that they love doing. And
that's important too.
it really is. So I'd love to kind of let you share that story and make someone feel less alone by sharing the story in which you were challenged, but also, ultimately changed forever.
Right. Well, I think creativity is always a great way to have us feel less alone. It can open so many doors, first internally, and then eventually to the practical aspect of life where we do, need to make a living and money, but we also want it to be something that we're passionate about and expresses who we are. And creativity has definitely opened endless doors for me. It did as a kid. That was how I kind of created my own life and felt proud doing my own thing as a kid. And that's also what really made me passionate about doing musical theater, and, writing my own plays in my head and just, having fun as a kid. And then it definitely unexpectedly prepared me, for what, came ahead. My senior year of high school, what started with a very bad stomach ache, ended up in being rushed to the emergency room, which doctors later discovered was due to a blood clot. And for someone that had never been really in hospitals or dealt with severe illness, surgeons cut me open, and my stomach just literally exploded to the top of the emergency room because there was so much pressure due to this blood clot that no one saw lurking there. All I remember, and this was my senior year of high school, I just remember being in intense pain. And no one knew why this had happened. Years later, when I started, becoming very interested in post-traumatic stress disorder and the relationship between the body and mind, I realized that part of what could have caused this was, I was also sexually assaulted by my voice teacher for 2 years before that. And, on a side note, I'm so glad that so many of these stories in the media are being brought to light because for me, there's always been a clear connection between, the stress of keeping the secret and, the undeserved, shame and guilt really manifesting in something that, manifest in, chronic pain or stress or just something that really does trouble the body. But anyway, I woke up from my coma months later, having no idea what had happened and dealing with a whole new reality of the surgical ICU. Not really knowing what I was doing until doctors alerted me very kindly that, I didn't have a stomach anymore. And they also, since I had no digestive system, they also didn't know if I'd ever get one back. So that meant that I couldn't eat or drink anything by mouth. I was hooked up to IVs, and they didn't know if that would ever happen again. And of course, the first thing I asked was, well, will it, and when will it happen? And doctors who you're supposed to trust as, the authority that knows all the answers, it was the most traumatizing thing, remembering them shaking their head and just saying, I don't know. And no one knew, not even my wonderful family who really literally camped out in the surgical ICU with me for the many months I was in the hospital. It turned out to be 6 years that I couldn't eat or drink anything, mostly because we really had to find a team of surgeons that knew what to do, that could kind of create a plan to make a digestive system for me. And that took, 27 surgeries later. I'm still here. But, there were a lot of ups and downs, and I could go through every little bit of it. But I think the point is that because I had always been so centered in creativity as a child, when I woke up from the coma, and woke up in this new world, I had no idea what had happened. I was wondering why I wasn't talking about like which musical theater college I had applied to and, where I was going. So I think I was just very determined to not like be this patient that everyone was identifying me as. And it just made me, want to, go back into theater and creating even more. So I think that just filled me with a determination that like, whatever this is right now, I got to document this. I got to make something of it. So I started, even in the hospital. And then when I came home and I couldn't eat or drink, I would just, glue myself to my laptop and just write stories and stories and just to document what I was doing. As soon as, I could, I started to sing. And, it's amazing how for me, initially it was like an act of defiance, but it also, brought me back in touch with really who I was, that I wasn't just a patient, that, I was still under there. And that creativity, expanded into visual art for another surgery that didn't go right. And, all I had was art supplies that my mom would bring me. And I was never really a visual artist, but I ended up just like throwing things on the canvas just because I had all this anger and frustration and I needed to get it out somewhere. And it's amazing, being locked in that hospital for so long, I created like 70 mixed media paintings. And so, creativity just became my voice. And when I, finally recovered from everything, all that creative work I had done, really branched into new pathways. I ended up writing a one-woman musical that I'm still touring about, everything that I went through, but more importantly, the lessons that we can all learn from unexpected, detours in life. My artwork I'm still doing, and I think the greatest gift is that I've had no real art training. So, the painting from the heart has just been a skill that, I've still taken with me. And, creativity continues to provide, a roadmap where, I don't think any of us have a roadmap in life. So I think being an artist is just the best survival skill any of us can have.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my God, there is so much to unpack there. Thank you so much.
I know it's a mouthful.
Yeah, and oh my God, like just every wave of trial and error, and then also learning from it, and then not only learning from it by reading someone else's story, but by sharing your story. I mean, typing away. What do you think you looked up? What kind of inspiration? Like who was inspiring you during this time to continue to go? Like who is that hero in your world during that time?
Well, I had always read stories, and as a theater lover, I had all those stories to resource. And in the hospital, believe me, there was plenty of TV on and daytime talk shows where you could hear people's inspirational stories. But it's still funny because for anyone, you're really never ready to change. Until you yourself, make the decision. No one can change you. No story can change you. And I think when I was really ready to, embody those stories and kind of use them as inspiration, all the, comeback stories and the heroic journeys, is when, I talk about this in one of my TED Talks when I discovered Joseph Campbell. And the archetypal hero's journey. It was from a book of mythology that I just happened to buy in like the bargain books section of the bookstore. And I was really taken by how all of these heroic journeys seem to have like a very similar through line of, being lost in darkness and terrible battles and coming out triumphant. And that pattern really made me curious about, okay, well, when's that going to happen for me? And then I happened to learn about Joseph Campbell, who kind of classified this as, 12 stages of an archetypal hero's journey. And by learning that journey, it really empowered me with, wow, like, doctors can't come up with like a real clear ending for me, but this hero's journey seems to have everything very spelled out. So again, using that creative skill, I was able to kind of create my own hero's journey. And even if I didn't know exactly how the ending was going to go, I could kind of fabricate how, I wanted my ending to go. And it was okay because many people had done that before, through writing their hero's journey. And, it's amazing that, even though I had no, confirmation of, how my story would end, by just creating different endings and imagining these fantasy worlds for myself, and writing these like kind of mythological stories for me to follow, it filled me with hope. That's all it did. And I think that was good enough.
Yes. I want to say one of the things that we have in common is we're both theater nerds. I went to school for acting, and I graduated with a degree from NIU with a degree in acting.
Nice.
And yeah, I used to read this quote to myself every day. We must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that we have waiting for us, which you know of. I love it.
All that. Man plans, God laughs, yeah. All that kind of stuff,
Exactly. And so I just touch base on it because you're so right that when we're in the traumatic areas, I think it's like stories and having someone actually take time to document what trauma they're going through is really, really, really hard to do, but it's so valuable for anybody to do. So I want to ask you though, so sort of like more pivot, how are you taking your story, this story that you've gone through, and putting it out in the world? Like, how are you marketing it? How are you just using your social medias as much as possible, or do you have a team behind you? How are you using that?
Oh no team at all. No team. But no, it's I wish there was an easy answer, but it really took a lot of work and, more importantly, a lot of focus. I had to tell myself, it wasn't really such a hard job to tell myself. I mean, I was so motivated, mostly because I had lived so many years without food and drink in total isolation. And I knew that theater was my way of rejoining the world. And so I just told myself, I have to do nothing but, get this story out there. So, first, before any, obviously before any promotion, I just spent 2 years, creating Gutless and Grateful, which is the one-woman musical about my life that I'm still touring. And it opened in New York, October 2012. And, I'm taking it to Washington, D.C. next week. So it's been a while. And, when I first premiered it, I sent out hundreds and hundreds of letters that and emails to people, and snail mail. That took so much time that I would personally, I sent so many that people thought it was like through like a mailing list that I didn't even know what that was at that point. But I personally looked up, people that I wanted, to get to the show. And, for months, I just heard complete radio silence. But, the first email I got back saying, "Oh, wow, sounds intriguing. I'd love to go." That gives you like a high that's like, okay, maybe the next email I'll get a response. And, it took a lot of work. No one knew my story. No one knew about the show. I didn't know about the show. I hadn't even done it, for the public yet. But it took kind of that fearless, you got to take a risk and put yourself out there. And, the opening at the Triad Theater in New York was really a success. And it was the real first big thing I had done, in this new life. And that definitely filled me with the motivation to think creatively. And I think thinking creatively is not accepting like, status quo. Like, okay, I did this. How can I, change this and really see, what the world needs right now. And I think, that eventually led to, examining what I had been through, and seeing that there were like mental health issues and sexual assault issues in my story, and also that, the public was dealing with. And that's how I ended up, touring it to colleges and giving talkbacks on resilience and creativity, sexual assault, disability. So you really have to think about not only what do I need, like, oh, I need to get my story out there, but also like what the audience really needs to hear that they can take on their own hero's journey. So, it takes work. I guess you can hire a team, but I guess I never thought to do that.
No, I really want to stress the importance of what you just said, though. What do I just need? But more so, what does the world really need right now? And that's one of the quality questions that, leads to a quality life and creating a life worth living is that idea, and not just idea specifically to what the world needs, but find your group, your audience. How did you find? I know you said you did snail mail. Was there any tricks that you used to find your group of people, the niche people that you really wanted to help?
Well, at first, I joined the, Manhattan Association of Cabaret, and, I got their mailing list, and, I sent out postcards to friends and family. Facebook was invented while I was in a coma. So like I was pretty late to catch on to that. But yeah, lots and lots of mailings. Until I finally got a website and I could send people lots and lots of emails, personally. And, yeah, again, I'm used to the idea that there is no set roadmap for everyone. So, I've done a lot of hard work, manually. I'm sure there are easier ways, but, I've also learned a lot through that about what works and what doesn't.
And that's so critical, is that you learned through direct application of trying and failing, seeing what works, and pivoting and as
right. And you have to fail, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's part of the process that's so hard to do and to keep going. And but that's the reason why I bring it up. I bring up marketing only because that all ties back to being worried about being a has-been, to create this thing, to work so hard on this one thing, this project, or maybe in your case a play, or maybe becoming an actor, and then just not having anything happen, just hearing crickets. And it's so important to get the word out there, and to share.
Exactly.
So is there one habit, though, that you think you kind of adopted in order to really, really energize yourself to always create? Because it can get really tiring just sitting there and creating, all day. I just want to be kind of like, real with people. It does get exhausting just creating all the time.
Well, it should come organically. So that means there are times that you're not going to feel like it. And I think I've realized, especially through this, I created so much too, not like for inspirational reasons, but like just to distract myself, through all the surgeries and, the ups and downs and not eating and drinking. It also became like a coping skill. And eventually, when I, recovered from everything, I had to learn how to, take breaks, which was equally as hard. And I think as an artist, we can all get into overdrive, and we have to remember to kind of pause and take time to stop producing and also receiving inspiration, just like take a nature walk, read a book, because otherwise, we start getting repetitive or burnt out, or, and that's not good for anyone, especially an artist.
Yeah. Oh, so true. That's the only reason why I bring it up, is just if you're feeling like you're trying to create and you're exhausted, you're not alone in that thought. And then just as equally is, like you were saying, the rest thing is so imperative. But anybody that's been addicted to creation, taking a rest, it does feel like you're dying inside, and it also feels like, doesn't it? I mean, it's like this.
But it can also be like surprisingly refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, and give you new ideas and also a new perspective on something, and actually end up
right, and new roadmaps.
Exactly. So I'd love to get into what I call curiosity questions, scratching the surface curiosity questions, where it's just
Okay.
a few questions that first thing comes to mind, and some are a little bit deeper. I will preface with that. Some are a little deeper, and so if you take your time, no worries. We got like 10 more minutes if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Awesome. So the first question I like to ask is what's that one thought that keeps going through your head that you just kind of wish you didn't have anymore?
I should be doing something. I should be doing something.
Right? Okay, I love that. What's a belief that you had if I asked you 10 years ago about yourself, about the way you thought your future is going to be, something like that? What is a belief that you had that now, if you thought about that same belief, you'd go, I was totally wrong?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go to college, study musical theater, and then be on Broadway right away.
I love that. Just because everyone that's ever been 15-year-old, I guess, theater nerd or anything, that's exactly what you think you're going to do. And when it doesn't happen,
Yep.
it's really scary when it doesn't happen. So anyways, it's happening for you,
Yep.
though. You're doing stuff, so keep it up.
Thank you.
The next question I'd love to ask is if you got to take anybody, living or dead, and be them for an entire month, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. An entire month. Well, if we're talking theater, how about Stephanie Block? I think she's such a powerhouse. And she's done really amazing work. I know she had a solo show for a while where I heard she told amazing stories, and I love her. Ever since I saw her on Broadway in Boys for Models, and I know she's done so much since then.
I gotta check her out. Honestly, I have no idea who you're talking about, and I feel like a bad Broadway.
Stephanie Block, yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I'm in New York, so around that area.
I'll check her out.
Yeah.
What is a quote or a mantra that you've been living by lately?
Oh my God, so many lately. Because I've had a few ups and downs very recently. I was hit by a car and broke my legs,
Oh my God.
and had to get through that, and then I had a divorce last year, so lots of ups and downs. But I think the one that has really helped me the most is probably, oh God, the one I always used to use as a kid. Breathe in inspiration, breathe out poetry. And it's just reminded me that, I have to, take a pause and breathe. I think that's the most important thing, that I'm a thinker. So I always end up telling myself, like, what should I be doing now? What should I be doing now? Or this isn't how I wanted my life to go. And then sometimes I just have to stop, like, take a breath, and, whatever the next step will come, as long as I breathe and just wait for it.
That is so vital for that one person who needs to hear that right now. That is, it's trying so hard to start a business or get out there, or get famous or write the next masterpiece. That just like breathing and just taking the time. That was like one of the first things that I learned at acting school, was just that our breath
and listening.
Yes. Oh my God. We could, Amy, I invite you onto the show again, and we'll do an entire episode on just listening alone and how important it is. Listening to ourselves, listening to the atmosphere, to the people around us, all that. That's awesome.
Yep.
God, I could talk to you for 14 years. I know it. Anyways, the next thing I would love to ask is, what do you think was a book that really allowed you to have this sort of like growth mindset that I call, rather than like a devolving sort of mindset or destructive mindset?
Well, a book, since I definitely dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder, but I would recommend this for anyone, is by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. I always recommend this. The Body Keeps the Score. I mean, even if you don't read that book, just remember that title, because it's so true. Sometimes we think we can think ourselves out of any situation. But really, what we hold back and what we don't acknowledge, comes off in our bodies. And at the end of the day, our bodies are all we have. And there's actually a wonderful chapter about how theater is so wonderful, and these collective community things like dance and singing and all that, to really create empathy in society and all help us kind of heal through our own things. So, it's a big book. And for me, it was just such a turnaround book.
That is so cool. What's it called again?
Body Keeps the Score. By Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
Oh, I admittedly have never read that, but I will admittedly say that I'm addicted to exercise because of that. Just because it gives you such good energy for creation, and sort of it's like, I think
I agree.
You got to move, otherwise you'll kind of lose, because your body's not energized to actually think the great thoughts that you have on your mind in order to create.
Completely. Yep.
So, all right, I'll just ask one more question, because I love to also get you in a plug and tell everyone that's listening right now what you're working on. But the last thing is sort of a fill in the blank sort of question.
Sure.
So if that one person that you really want to talk to right now started to do XYZ, like they started to do something, the craziest thing would happen to them today, what would it be?
If someone I was talking to, say that one more time, I gotta practice that.
Yeah. So I just want you to think of one person that you really wish you could help right now. Maybe you have no access to them, but you could help them by telling them this one thing. What would it be?
This is as cliche as they come, but one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. I mean, I've realized that's cliche because it's true. And it's the hardest thing for me to follow too, because I always want to think ahead. But it's really, I think we appreciate the phrase be in the moment in different capacities at different stages of our lives. But, there's a reason that's kind of stuck around. Because the truth is, we don't know what will happen the next hour. We don't know what will happen tomorrow unless we're there to be in the here and now, in order to make a new start. Otherwise, life will kind of just happen to us instead of us making our own lives. So I think it's very important, as much as I always want to roll my eyes at, be in the moment. There's a reason why that's kind of a persistent thing in self-help and all that kind of stuff, because it's really how we put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
Wow. Oh, I love that so much, because I'm currently in the book writing process right now, knowing that it might take 2 years to actually get out a book, but knowing that I often want to skip steps, and that is just, I think, the thing that really can hurt us, and to stay in the moment and just go, okay, focus on this one thing for now. Like, just do this for 20 minutes. That's all you got to get to. Maybe 5 minutes, even if it's that hard.
It's true.
So, but hey, if you guys have heard anything that Amy or I said that really spoke to you, I'd love for you to Instagram, Facebook, tweet about it. Just get in connection with us somehow and put it out in the world, because documentating it, I tell you, is what is what creation's all about. It's not being able to just make it out of a vacuum, but to create it from someone that you look up to. And I created this show just because I want people to not just hear these interviews that I have as just like, people that accept or adopt them as heroes and never actually talk to them. I want them to become friends with you. So Amy, if someone wanted to become a real friend of yours, how can they get connected with you?
Well, definitely check out my website, amyoes.com. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with me. I blog all the time about what I'm doing, and I have a bunch of creativity resources and, a little ebook on, creation, another ebook on how I got a TED Talk, and ways, you can try to get one as well. I'm also on social media, Twitter and Facebook, Instagram. I'm always showing my art. So definitely tweet me and, let me know what you think or any creativity questions. If you watch my first TED Talk, it's about being a detourist. And I actually have a section on my site where you can share your detour story and how you're a detourist. And there are tons of stories up there of people from all different walks of life all over the world who have been through something unexpected. It doesn't have to be a major trauma. It could be just any little glitch or, hitch you didn't expect. And it's a wonderful community. So, definitely check it out. And I can give you those links too if you want to share them with us.
That would be incredible. Thank you, Amy Oestreicher, for coming on Scratch Your Own Itch. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you till next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, there's another episode of Amy Oestreicher and I. Oh my God, what a story, right? She has been through it all, and she is one creative that I think is someone who just takes their trauma and transpires it into greatness. And it's the story of, the hero's journey. Someone going through something really, really scarring and turning it into something really, really inspiring. And I know this show is not about just inspiring, so I want you to ask yourself again, are you afraid about being a has-been? And if you are and you have no support team, I invite you to join my Facebook group, Scratch Your Own Itch, Creating a Life Worth Living. Also emailing me, Logan@LoganTylerNelson.com. Again, that's Logan@LoganTylerNelson.com, and I will send you a free PDF of finding an area of supremacy so you know exactly how you can start scratching your own itch. And don't ever forget, you matter and you're enough. And also, if you found this episode at all informative or worthy of sharing to help someone feel a little less alone, please share it with that person that needs it to be shared, because that's the best compliment you could ever send to me. So, with that all being said, you matter and you're enough.